This is crack cocaine.
Thanks largely to the war on drugs, a war that has been waged almost exclusively in poor communities of color, even though studies have consistently shown that people of color are no more likely to use or sell illegal drugs than whites. The war on drugs waged in these ghetto communities has managed to brand as felons millions of people of color for relatively minor, non-violent drug offenses. And once branded a felon, they're ushered into a permanent second-class status, not unlike the one we supposedly left behind. Those labeled felons may be denied the right to vote, are automatically excluded from juries, and may be legally discriminated against in employment, housing, access to education, public benefits, much like their grandparents or great-grandparents may have been discriminated against during the Jim Crow era.
What's happening here in America is that our government inadvertently supplying the hard drugs to the people in this country, then they're putting the people who use them in this country in jail.
I think the prevailing view on Wall Street is anyone stupid enough to buy drugs deserves to die. And if you can make money from them while they're doing it, that's great. And if that's imposing a crime wave on the community away from Wall Street, that's okay. There's no drug crime on Wall Street.
Why in the world do we have millions of innocent young people wasting away in prison when the big people who are committing these huge, atrocious crimes are getting away every day?
I graduated from Yale Law School in 1993. I grew up in the South. I had never been north of Kentucky before I went to law school. I got there, I had never seen so much drug abuse as went on among the undergraduates at Yale. Literally across the street, 2 blocks away, there was also drug abuse in the housing project. If a kid, 19-year-old kid, got caught doing drugs at Yale, they were considered to be experimenting with drugs. Maybe they go to drug rehab or whatever, get their lives turned around. Those kids went on to become doctors, lawyers, accountants, the President of the United States, etc. 2 blocks away, a 19-year-old caught doing drugs is a drug dealer, a drug pusher, and they went to prison. This is the way the country works. This is the way the system works. We know, statistics have shown over and over again, there is no more drug abuse happening in the inner city than in the suburbs. If you really want to catch a bunch of drug abusers, don't go in a housing project, go in a frat house. You'll get all the drugs you want and all the arrests you want. But the system knows that if any police department sent its drug unit onto Harvard's campus and arrested the sons and daughters of privilege, the police chief would lose his job by Monday morning.
Drug use and drug sales is relatively equal across racial lines, but law enforcement resources are almost entirely concentrated in African American and Latino communities.
The corrections industry is booming.
You go to court, you're basically facing an all-white jury, a white judge, a white prosecutor, white court reporter. So it's kind of like a white world. DA agents, they're all white. I mean, in my whole case, I don't think that I've had one black person other than the probation officer in my whole case. I think that the drug war is the last white hope.
This system and this country has tore apart my family and our family. You can't have a black family and be together.
You pay somebody to build a fancy cave, and you fill it up as far as you can get it, which is pretty full of people that the people that built the cage get paid $40,000 or $50,000 a year to just keep in the cage.
The ruling class here in America had to come up with something so that they could control certain segments of society so that they could stay in power. So they created the drug war for the felonization of Americans.
I am a former Los Angeles Police narcotics detective, and I work South Central Los Angeles, and I will tell you, Director Deutsch, and the agency has dealt drugs throughout this country for a long time.
Where I come from, when you transform a person into a piece of property, that's called slavery.
The war on drugs, contrary to popular belief, was not declared in response to rising drug crime. Actually, the war on drugs, the current drug war, was declared in 1982 by President Ronald Reagan at a time when drug crime was actually on the decline. A few years later, crack cocaine hit the streets in poor communities of color across America, and the Reagan administration hired staff to publicize crack babies, crack mothers, crack dealers in inner city communities in an effort to build public support and more funding and ensure more funding for the new war that had been declared. Millions of poor people of color have been rounded up for relatively minor nonviolent drug offenses. In fact, in 2005, 4 out of 5 drug arrests were for possession. Only 1 out of 5 were for sales. Most people in state prison for drug offenses have no history of violence or significant selling activity. For us to tell young African American kids in ghetto communities, your destiny is in your own hands, that may be an inspirational message, but for many of them, it may turn out to be a lie.